So round 2 results are all in. For the power rankings, we're able to give every team a place now. Last week was just the first 4. Again, it's still pretty early days with the power rankings, so there are some teams in positions which seem improbable. But yeah, it'll only take 1 win or 1 loss next week for things to really jump around a bit more. Hopefully as the season goes on, kind of see a bit more of a stabilization going on. So in 15th spot on the power rankings, no guesses for choosing the Jaguares. So they're the only team who's lost 2 games, and they got pretty hammered in this most recent game by the Lions. So yeah, form not looking good. First game was kind of iffy. Second game, really one-sided. So yeah, there's definitely going to need to be some improvement from them. They've got the Hurricanes in Argentina next week, so we'll see if that's a good chance for them to step things up. 14th. Only played 1 game, and they got kind of hammered by a team which, at least on last season's form, was a poor team because they finished last, the Rebels. So yeah, that gives the Reds a pretty low spot on the power rankings. I mean, to be fair, they played most of their game with 14 men, and at some point they played with 13. So it is a bit harsh, but you get a bonus point loss to the Rebels, you get 14th. I mean, as the Rebels, if they go to improve, kind of a loss against them may not be as a surprise, but at the moment anyway, the Rebels are a team that if you lose to, it's gonna cost you a bit anyway. Next, Sunwolves. So they did all right, didn't they? They got a narrow loss to the Brumbies, but the Brumbies not a particularly strong team last year, kind of mid-table if you take out the kind of conference rankings, below like teams like the Blues. But they did lose at home, and a loss is a loss. So yeah, that puts them at 13th on the power rankings after their loss to the Brumbies. Next, now this one may seem a bit ridiculous, but the Hurricanes lost to the Bulls. It's only 1 game, so it's only going to take a victory next week over the Jaguares for them to jump up the table. But yeah, I mean, the Bulls were really not a fancied side. The Hurricanes were one of the top 2 teams to take out the title this year, according to the bookmakers. They're a semi-finalist last year. Everything said they should beat the Bulls, and they flat out lost. So you can't really give them much credit for losing a game that they were supposed to win comfortably. So 12th spot is the Hurricanes. Like I said, I don't expect them to stay there, but for this week, that's them. In 11th, we got the Chiefs. So you may argue, well, the Hurricanes only lost by 2, but they got smacked. So why would the Hurricanes be below them? Well, the Chiefs were supposed to lose this game. They weren't the favourites by any stretch of the imagination. They pushed the Crusaders for a while and ended up losing it kind of by a bigger margin in the last stretch of the game. So, I mean, it's pretty similar. Like I said, only 1 game into the season, so it's all very fluid. But yeah, a loss to the Crusaders in Christchurch is something that every team who visited Christchurch got last season, so not too much kind of shame in that. Next at 10, so the Blues. The Blues went into Dunedin and got beaten, but they got a bonus point, so better result than some other teams. Highlanders, one of the stronger teams last season, not the top kind of 3 strongest, but still in that top echelon of kind of strong teams. So it was never going to be an easy task, and they didn't look poor. So yeah, we'll give them 10th spot. Can't give them any higher just because, a loss is a loss. Next, in a similar situation to the Blues, the Sharks had the bye this week, so no real movement for them up or down. I mean, I did have them 3rd last week, but because there are only 4 teams. But yeah, the Sharks are at 9th. Same situation as the Blues. They had 1 game. They lost it away from home against the strong team. So They were playing the Lions, who are arguably a stronger team than the Highlanders, so similar margin. I think maybe exactly the same margin, 7 points. So yeah, I put the Sharks in just a touch ahead of the Blues in at 9. In at 8, go the Stormers. So a win and a loss. They're the only team with a split record so far. Could argue they could be a bit higher, seeing as they did beat the Jaguares by 8 points, and they picked up a losing bonus point against the Waratahs. But I mean, the Jaguares are kind of a mid-table team last season and not doing too great this season, so got to take that win into account. And they were on the back foot a bit against the Waratahs, so 8th I think is fair for now, and we'll see how they go with the rest of their tour. Next, Brumbies. So Brumbies have only had 1 win, and they beat the Sunwolves. So you could argue, oh, Sunwolves are a weaker team than the Jaguares, so maybe the Stormers should be above them. But at least the Brumbies did it away from home. So they had to go to Japan. They had to go with the changing of the seasons, basically from southern to northern hemisphere. And, you know, they still got a win. Not startling, otherwise they'd be higher up the board, but 7th, 1 win from 1. Can't complain too much. Obviously they would have liked to get a bigger margin, but didn't end up happening that way, so yeah, still top half of the board is not too bad. Waratahs. So they beat the Stormers, so they're 1 from 1. A game that could have gone to a draw. It was pretty tight right up until the end. The Waratahs winning it in the 80th. So, you know, beating the Stormers is a good thing to do at home, of course, because the Stormers had beaten them the last time they played in Sydney, so they kind of erased that record. The Stormers were actually on a pretty good run against Aussie teams in Australia, so they broke that. And yeah, they weren't outstanding in their win, but a win no less. Next, at 5, the Highlanders. So they beat a New Zealand team at home in the Blues. The Blues were kind of a mid-table team last year, missed the playoffs, but yeah, no easy beats by any means, and they got the win. They looked, they were pushed at some times, but they ended up getting the win comfortably enough. You know, it was still a tight game, but still they got the win. So I give them credit for pulling that one out against a tough kind of conference rival. Next, and here is one of the more surprising results. So the Rebels at 4, they put a whole lot of points on the Reds, and it's a weird one because the Reds were a pretty lowly team last season and the Reds were down a man, so it feels like it's too high for them, but they got a big win, and you got to give them credit. Not many teams got bonus point wins this round, so they did the business. They could have been more ruthless, but also they could have let the pressure of having the extra man get to them. Some teams, you know, can't put it in the bag, but they got to work and they did it. So we'll give them 4th for this week and see if they can kind of maintain some of that form as the season goes on. Speaking of can they maintain the form as the season goes on, the Bulls. So the Bulls pulled off the upset of the round. They knocked over, like I said, the Crusaders and the Hurricanes were the 2 teams favoured to win it this season. And the Bulls knocked them off. So only by 2 points. But come on, man, they beat the Hurricanes. And that was a result that nobody expected to happen. So I'll give them credit. They've knocked off one of the best teams, so they deserve a good place. Can they keep it going? They got the Lions next week. If they go down with a bonus point loss, they will start to plummet. Hey, if they pull off another victory, who knows? They could even keep going higher. Next, and it's not surprising to see this, Crusaders. So again, they were playing a New Zealand team. Chiefs, one of the stronger teams last year. Semi-finalist, and they beat them comfortably. They were behind for a little while, but they piled on the points at the end. So yeah, Crusaders at the top of the board, fast start to the season for them. So yeah, ominous looking stuff for the rest of us. And number 1 this week has to be the Lions. They're the only team with 2 wins, so it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they get the top spot. You know, as other teams have byes, their positions will shift as other teams kind of catch games up on them. But yeah, 2 from 2. First one a little bit rusty, but a win nonetheless. And second result against the Jaguares, pretty comfortable. So, you know, bonus point win. Lots of possession, lots of tries. So yeah, again, dangerous looking team for the comp. So yeah, that's my power rankings. Yeah, like I said at the start, there's a few funny ones. Just because we're so early on into the season, you know, round 1, it's kind of all over the shop. But hopefully, as we go forward a bit more, we'll get some people settling into some places and more competition for those spots. So yep, that's my lot. Let me know what you reckon. Who's too high? Who's too low? Who's flat out wrong? And yeah, we'll see how we go for the next week's one. See who's going to be a mover. All right, guys, take it easy, and I'll speak to you next time.